Hello and welcome to another edition of The Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me today I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. It's always nice recording one of these after a win, and look, it's getting pretty interesting at the top of the table. That gap between first and second, and first and sixth or first and seventh is really starting to grow. So, um, it's one of those situations. I'm just sort of, while the good times are going, I'm just enjoying it, and hopefully they can continue all through the season.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess again from what I said last week, we're talking about getting those little clumps of wins together, and I'm looking at the last five, and it's four out of the last five are wins, four in a row.
Yeah,
So,
4 in a row. Yeah,
pretty much that's the best form in the division at the moment. So, just rewards, I guess, for consistent performance. We deserve to be where we are.
yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to pull up the table because there was a few impressive stats. I think someone was saying we're the only team in the EFL not to have a draw yet, which is pretty good. I saw Tiger Base posted out a tweet saying that it's our best. Currently, we're on our best ever win percentage. I think it's at about 70%, which is far and away our best ever. I think we've got the most goals or equal most goals scored in the division. 15 goals 11 goals conceded, which is the second least ahead of, I think Lincoln's got 10 conceded.
Yeah.
But yeah, 26 goals scored, 11 wins, 2 more than any other team in the division. Look, there's not much more you can ask for. And we're on track for 108 points, which, it's still early days, but I do sort of have in the back of my mind that we're kind of on track for 100 points, and it'd sure be nice to get to 100 points in a season.
Yeah, look, I mean, we've talked about it only being lowly League One before, but hitting triple figures and ending the season would be an impressive accomplishment either way, particularly with like how the rest of this league and the fixtures are unfolding, because it doesn't. We've talked about it being a tough league, and it seems that pretty much anyone can beat anyone on any given day.
Except for us, of course, yeah. Because you look at apart from, so Lincoln and us both picked up the 3 points this weekend, or this game day, but Peterborough, Charlton, and Portsmouth in the top six all lost. Ipswich dropped points, and Sunderland drew as well. So of the top 10, only the top 2 actually picked up wins, which, as you say, does show that anyone can beat anyone in this division. But it also underlines just how well we've been playing and how consistently we've been playing. And we were sitting here a few weeks. We'll talk about the games themselves in a second, but we were sitting here a few weeks ago talking about we'd sort of gone on a bit of a win-loss streak, which was starting to look pretty inconsistent. And since that loss to, what was it, Peterborough, I guess, we've just, cup game aside against Stevenage, we've been pretty consistent.
Yeah, don't know. I mean, I think it's helped that we've been able to settle on a pretty well on that first 11, and you've got Magennis has been in scoring form. Wilkes is still chipping in. Same sort of stuff we've been talking about. When everyone's performing well, there's no reason to change. So, and that consistency just helps you build. Consistency in your 11 helps you build consistency on the park, I think.
Definitely. We'll look at first at that Stevenage game, which was, I guess, a bit more of a disappointing fixture than the Doncaster win, going out on penalties. I think it was a pretty much fully changed 11. I think Slater was the only player to keep his place from the weekend's game. Well, sorry, the previous game, midweek last week, with Scott, Eaves, and Meyer up front. And I was pretty happy to see Meyer get a start there. And he's had a bit of a strange start to his City career, because he came in looking quite good in his first couple of games, and of course got the assist for the winner against Crewe at home in the league, which was great to see. But he had a few flashes in this game, but it doesn't look like he's really coming on as much as I would have expected, which I guess isn't great to see. And Samuelson's another one where he had those couple of great games in the EFL Trophy, and he just didn't really take his chance in this fixture either.
Yeah, look, just from watching the highlights, there weren't many from Meyer. I think there's a couple of crossfield passes that went to the opposition.
Yeah.
Which were pretty average.
I think his turnover early in the game that almost kind of led to a pretty decent chance for them.
Yeah, and Samuelson's our eternal enigma, I think. He just he has the flashes of brilliance and can never seem to, I guess, just transfer it to a consistent basis or at that sort of next level, because the EFL trophy, what he's basically played under 21s or under 23s teams, I mean, as soon as he seems to get stepped up into the...
But I'm sure Grimsby and stuff would have been playing reasonably strong sides. I mean, I don't, I'm not an expert on Grimsby's team, so I could be wrong on that. But you'd sort of think, I mean, Stevenage in League Two should be at about the same level, so it's a bit of a weird one.
But yeah, I don't know. Just he doesn't. I don't know about Samuelson. So we slag him, and then he has a good game. And wow, that was good. If he can just produce that, then on a more regular basis, he could be quite a player. And then he gets a couple more chances, and then his form just dips off again, and he doesn't really do much. He won a penalty.
That's true.
But I don't know.
And look,
a couple of shots and stuff, but yeah.
It shows that he's getting in the right positions. He had a lot of chances. He won the penalty, as you say, which was great, and slotted by Eaves as well, which was also good to see. Eaves is a funny one, and I think he's sort of, I mean, full disclosure, I wasn't able to watch this game. I think the FA Cup games and League Cup games have been quite difficult for us here in Oz because they're not included in the streaming package, and outside of finding a dodgy link on the internet, it gets quite hard to watch these games. So I've only just seen the highlights, but the highlights are quite kind on Eaves, and I kind of looked at it and sort of saw that he created a couple of chances. He played in a few teammates, obviously converted the penalty. Yes, his penalty in the penalty shootout wasn't fantastic. It was probably a bit in the keeper's comfort zone. But from what I hear, his all-round game was actually a bit worse than that. A few offsides, a few poor touches, things like that. I guess he's another one like Samuelson, who's a bit of an enigma. Where, we'll talk about the Doncaster game in a second, but scoring again in the Doncaster game means it's now 3-3 for him, which is a good record. But he just can't get much consistency in his game during games, it seems.
Yeah, look, at the moment, I guess what's good about Eaves' Eaves and Magennis at the moment is that, Magennis is starting and scoring goals, and then when he gets subbed off and Eaves comes on and is scoring goals as well. So it's not a bad situation to be in. But yeah, it's a shame if he could get a little bit more consistency in that in those opportunities where he starts, then we'd have a dilemma in terms of our starting forwards. But look, I like Eaves. I think he's a likable guy. He tries his heart out all the time. I can't remember. There's maybe one or two games where you could say, it didn't look like he was really interested. But for the most part, he always gives his all. He's busy running, getting involved, and doing a lot of work for a big man as well. So yeah. Not sure. I don't know whether it's just he hasn't played a lot of football this season compared to like Magennis, and Magennis has had the internationals where he's gone away and played extra games. So I guess that sort of is in Magennis's favour. He's playing lots and lots of football, and he's sort of, because he's in good form, he's able to keep that his own personal momentum going. And Eaves, I guess, is just stuck in that sort of stop-start sort of a rut where he can't quite get out of it and get going and force his way into that into a starting spot.
Yeah, and then I guess the other issue as well is it seems a problem of centre backs for us, which is we've almost got too many of them at the moment. And I sense that looking at that starting 11, I sense that McCann saw it as an opportunity to give McLoughlin, Device and Jones starts. And realistically, I think probably should have started Jones in midfield ahead of Slater, just so that we could have had more natural shape in that back four with Fleming on the field instead of having McLoughlin at left back. I feel like that was probably the lapse in judgment from McCann, and that's me speaking as a layman. I mean, I'm not quite sure if that's the reasoning, but it just seemed a bit odd to go in with three centre backs when we had Fleming on the bench who hasn't played a whole lot of game time either. And it meant that, from all reports, McLoughlin at left back just didn't really fit the mould and really sort of struggled there. And of course, Device pretty much at fault for the Stevenage goal with a pretty poor clearance right into a Stevenage player. was sort of our undoing. And I think McGann sort of said after the game that he thought he'd put out a side that was strong enough to get through. We obviously had Lewis Potter coming off the bench. We had Fleming who came off the bench, and then Jones and Chadwick as well. But it was a pretty youthful team, pretty youthful bench as well. So it was one of those games where I think if as was the case, if we hadn't put the game away early, it was going to be a bit of a worry because there wasn't a whole lot of strength on the bench to come on and change the game.
Yeah, I guess we both on last episode said expected to win, and then after we both tipped the win, I think I said, "Oh, this is going to turn into a banana skin for us," which it sort of ended up being a little bit of a slip up. I mean, you wouldn't say that we were embarrassed, but it is disappointing especially to take the lead. And then, give away a goal essentially with, as you mentioned, a poor clearance from Device. And then, I thought, we went to penalties. You'd almost be confident. We've had a pretty good run in penalty shootout so far. So
and they missed their first penalty, and I thought, because I sort of woke up for the penalty shootout and I was following it, and I thought they missed the first penalty. I was like, oh, that we're through then, because I just didn't imagine any of our players would miss their penalties.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a bit disappointing in that regard, but. I think. I mean, we've been talking about these games again as being opportunities for McCann to rotate, to give some of these fringe players starting opportunities to show their wares, which is, I guess, that's obviously what he's done here. And you go based on result, how many really did showcase their talents to their full potential.
And I guess the silver lining as well is, I always sort of flinch a little bit when the draw comes out for the next round to see who we would have got if we'd got through. And it was just, it's Swansea, so it's not as if it's a Big Six Premier League club or anything like that. It's not like we've missed out on a potential TV fixture that's going to bring in a whole bunch of income, or a great ground to go along to for the players or anything like that. It's Swansea who would have knocked us out at that stage, so it's not as if we've missed out on some opportunity. So I guess that's sort of the silver lining to the loss. But I guess then we'll look ahead to we'll look back on the game from this morning against Doncaster, which was a fantastic 2-1 win. When the game started, I sort of said to you and the other boys in the podcast chat that it had to feel like a danger game. I don't know if it's because Doncaster play the ball on the ground a lot more, and they look a lot more confident on the ball than some of our opponents who are more likely to boot the ball up the field, or don't seem to do a whole lot with the ball. And for that first 10 or 15 minutes, Doncaster looked quite dangerous. And then I guess as we sort of asserted our dominance on the game a little bit more, they dropped back and became a lot more reactive. But it was quite an interesting start to the game, I thought.
Yeah, look, I have to. I thought it was a really good game. I thought it was that Doncaster did start really well, and they had us under a lot of pressure really early. But as you say, we did manage to sort of turn that around and work ourselves back into the game, and start winning a few free kicks around the area and putting some pressure on with our set pieces. Not corners. The corners were atrocious this morning, but the actual free kicks weren't too bad. I think it was interesting. It was the commentators this morning did my head in. There was a couple of really weird comments. A weird analogy about us it being like a Champions League team playing a bottom 3 Premier League team or something. It didn't even feel like
we're a team coming first in League One and they're 10th. Like, he was sort of suggesting as if like, if you looked at the table, it wouldn't mirror what's happening on the pitch. I'm like, wow, I don't think it's not that far off first 10th in terms of performance.
It was a weird comment that he made, and I didn't really think, because I thought it was a really, really close game. It's not like, and he sort of said something about like, and didn't even give Doncaster the credit that they deserve for their first 15 or 20 minutes, because they were really good and they came at us fast and they played balls really well around the park, had us sort of chasing shadows almost. But yeah, look, I think they deserved the equaliser that they got late on, because of the pressure. I actually really thought they were going to score first. After about 10 minutes, I was like, they're going to go in here soon. And I was sort of a little bit worried that we might have another capitulation of sorts, but I think we did well to hold firm and just work our way back into it. I thought a couple of players really tried to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and take control. I thought Doherty on his return was really good. I don't
know what he has to do to score. Like he has rotten luck in the side. Like he hit the post again today. I'm pretty sure he was the one late on who forced the save that fell to Eaves. Like he's had so many good chances.
He had. I think there was another shot that was outside the box that got blocked or something, or someone and then went out for a corner.
No, he had a shot that was going to be a goal, but then Greaves was offside and it hit into Greaves. Yeah.
So I thought, but he's just that he gets the ball, he picks the ball up and he drives it forward, gets into those wide positions and drives it into the corner, and to work the cross in and things like that. And that's what seems to work really well for us. Those players that want to just go at the opposition and take the ball. I think I'm not sure. I didn't actually get to see Wilkes's yellow card for simulation. From the sounds of it, it wasn't. It seemed like a pretty.
It was a pretty stonewall. Like it's the typical sort of taps the ball in front of him to go around the keeper. Keeper with the outstretched hand pretty much grabs his ankle and pulls him down. Yeah. I don't know where the refs pulled a simulation yellow from that. That looked as clear a penalty as you're going to get. And I think he's got prize of that, didn't he? Didn't he get a yellow for diving against Wigan in the 8-0 loss when it should have been a penalty and got overturned? And I'm there might have even been another one as well. But he's had a few where they've carded him for simulation, where I'm pretty sure they've been penalties.
Yeah, it was weird because I don't know, but he apart from that, like he did really well, and I think the first half he tore him to pieces, and the second half they basically put 2 men on him.
Yeah,
and. I know particularly in the first half, there's a few times where he received the ball and then just basically won himself a free kick just because they just came in and were fouling him, and whoever he was marked up against was giving him way too much space. But
I think it was.
Did Wilkes win the free kick for the goal? I think he might have.
Yeah, I think he might have was it Halliday was the right back and they were playing Wilkes on the left? Because I think the commentators were sort of saying that it looked like we'd sort of targeted him and we're playing a lot down Wilkes' side.
Because the Doncaster manager had said, Wilkes will come in off the right, cut inside and tear us apart or something.
We'll play him on the left.
And then they played him on the left and put a Delacune who was... I really didn't even cite him in the game much. He didn't really do much.
He's another like Meyer, like Samuelson, who is really frustrating because it's hard to know what to make of him because he has those great games, and then games like this morning where he just doesn't look interested and doesn't put the pressure on, doesn't seem to do a whole lot on the field. Yeah, it was a bit disappointing from him.
Yeah, I think there was something. There was a moment in the first half, I think, where defensively he just didn't do anything. Yeah. He was there, I think, and they were playing around. And he didn't track his runner or something. They created a good chance. I can't remember, but but back to the free kick that was won on the edge of the box, and Magennis, those
thunder bastard. Not quite as effective as a Hull accent, but thunder bastard of a goal.
It was a decent hit, and on the score sheet again, doing his job.
Is that 4 and 4 for him? 4 and 4, 4 and 3 from now, or something like that? Because he
got the double. Yeah, be close to 4 and 4.
4 and 3 even. I get.
Maybe. But it was nice to see just one of those. I think I mentioned about mixing up. The commentators mentioned about mixing up our set pieces, and it was nice to see one of those direct free kicks, or indirect, I think it was, but taken like that just to drive at goal, because a lot of them have just been either like sort of a curling shot towards a top corner, or they've just been played in to try and into the box for someone to try and get a header. But it was nice to see them just roll it out, have a drive, and it was a pretty good drive.
Yeah, I almost broke the net. It was fantastic. I didn't at first I didn't think it had gone in because it was just one of those ones. It was hit so cleanly that I thought surely it's just, gone around the side or something because, you so rarely see those sorts of finishes directly from a free kick. So that was great. I guess it shows he's, sort of full of confidence. He just sort of went for it. And then, sort of as you said, so Doncaster then got their equaliser at about 75 minutes, I think it was. I'll double check that. 81 minutes, in fact, yeah. So it was actually even later than that. And you sort of got the sense at that point that maybe we'd sort of, you miss enough of those chances that perhaps the result kind of gets away from you. And I think it was pretty much straight from the equaliser that McCann chucked Eaves and who was it? Scott on because he'd already thrown Lewis Potter on for Adelican. So completely new front three, which again, it's this 5 subs that sort of lets us completely change our attack and completely freshen them up. And then with this first touch, Eaves, taps in the rebound to win the game for us a couple of minutes later. So still yet to draw in the league and managed to win the game. And of course, Darren Moore comes out afterwards and says that they probably deserved at least a draw or not the win. And you sort of look at the number of chances each side created. I think we had something like 20 shots to 25 shots to 6. Don't quite know how you can say that you deserved something from the game.
Yeah, it's weird that there's that manager thing, but there's the other thing that people keep making the comments that we haven't faced a real test yet. Every time we beat someone who's like we beat Ipswich and they're obviously not a real contender. We haven't passed a real test yet because we lost to Peterborough and we have passed a real test. No, it's just the same thing. We beat someone and that's because we won, they're not a real test. We gotta wait for the next test. Just the same as like every game we win, we shouldn't have won because I don't know. I don't understand the managers and the media and all the bullshit that's.
Yeah, and I think it was the Wiseman Say podcast last week I was listening to, and they made the really good point that these managers are really actually not doing themselves any favors because by saying that we didn't deserve to win, that we're not very good, we're a team of chances sort of thing, it actually probably gives our players more motivation to come out and say, well, we're going to prove you wrong. Whereas if they came out and said, City's a team full of stars, they're too good for this division, they're just bullying us, blah, 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 it would actually probably work in their favor more because then it would make our players' heads bigger. They might drop off. They might sort of start thinking, yeah, they're right, we are too big for this division sort of thing. And by doing the opposite, by sort of playing us as the underdogs, it's actually probably working in our favor.
Yeah, well, I guess the other thing is like if I was a manager and I was saying, well, we should have won that game, we deserve to win, but we didn't, then that means
how about you?
I as a manager then haven't done my job properly because my job is to get wins. And if I say that we deserve to win but we didn't, then I've failed.
Yeah, so they're saying, well, why didn't you? And so, it's the manager.
But if you say, I guess the same as like what you're saying. Like if you go, well, they were the better team today, or whatever, or they've come down from the championship and they're showing like their quality or whatever. It's sort of a bit. You go, oh well, there's a understandable reason why we haven't been able to get points, but they don't want to give us any credit. But I guess, if you depending on your perspective, they're doing themselves a disservice in doing so.
No, absolutely. Well, I'll give my 3-2-1 for the match first of all, and I'm giving the 3 to Magennis. I think it was another terrific game from him. Great goal from him, and really worked quite hard. There was a couple of times where he dropped really deep to help defend and just showed his leadership all over the park. So I was going to give him the 3 votes for that. In 2 is a player that we haven't actually touched on yet, but was Callum Elder, who I saw some stats just in the last hour or so that basically said that he was the leader on the park for big chances created, key passes, interceptions. He wasn't dribbled past even once. So it was probably his best game of the season, I thought. And we're sort of touching on the players early in the game that kind of kept us in it and tried to push us forward. And he was certainly one of them. He was linking up with Doherty a couple of times down that left-hand side and really pushing us on and getting us going, which was fantastic to see. And then I'll give the 1 to Doherty as well, because as we say, coming back from injury, first game back in the side, sort of had to prove that it was his place to lose again. And he certainly did that. And I just hope that in the next week or two, he can find the back of the net and kind of break that curse, because it looks like he's trying pretty hard to get that goal, and he really deserves it.
Yeah, I think they said, did Doherty play for Shrewsbury or something at some point? I feel like,
Yeah,
and
I think
they
so.
said when he did, he scored actually quite a few goals for them. I think they were saying that this morning, because they made a couple of similar comments, because then they said Magennis played with one of the Doncaster players somewhere else, I think, at one point,
Right.
and that between the two of them, they scored a hatful or something as well somewhere. I can't remember, but in terms of 3-2-1, I thought about this morning while I was watching the game, and I had it in my head, and I can't remember what I decided. I didn't have Magennis in the 3. I was actually not too impressed with his first half.
Yeah. Okay.
Apart, like, the goal was nice, but from there was just something that I can't remember what it was. I felt like he was a bit wasteful at times, and not. Did he give away a heap of stupid free kicks or something? He might have
I
given
think,
away quite a few early silly
yeah.
free kicks, where I was like, why did you even?
We've still yet to see him get one of his straight red cards. I'm sure there's one coming. For all the praise, for all of us bigging him up, I'm sure he's going to have a game where he just loses the plot.
I actually thought this morning he was going to get a yellow.
Yeah.
Because we gave away a few of those free kicks in a row. Then the ref came over to talk to him, and I thought, oh, here we go. Here's the yellow. And then he'll get himself all psyched up, and we'll get another one. But then I ended up being worried about Wilkes when he got on a yellow for simulation, because I was like, he's getting frustrated. Something silly will happen. Off the top of my head, from what I can remember, was really impressed with Doherty. I'll give Doherty the 3 points, even though he did not score. I don't know how he didn't score, as we touched on. I'm happy to stick Elder with 2, and I might give. I'm going to leave Magennis out completely. I'm going to give. I don't know. Do I want to give it to Eaves or Greaves? That's my toss up for 1 point. I might go with Greaves, Jacob Greaves. Another solid performance in the back. A really good block in the first half.
He must be getting a bruise, because that's similar to, he had
another one a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But he's just thrown himself in there, and just making really good challenges, and they've just got it sorted. They've just got it sorted there at the moment, which is really nice to see.
Definitely. No, it's great. It's great to see. It's great when you sort of start to see the best 11 starting to come together, and even so, I think it's sort of a best 12 or 13, because you've got Lewis Potter and others who can sort of rotate around in that front 3, which is great as well. Well, we'll talk quickly about a few off-field talking points from this week. First of all, was we sort of talked about it last week around any potential January transfer plans, and a name that we had seen floated, would have been like a month or 2 ago now. It was just sort of paper talk, but it's resurfaced, is Danny Grant, who's a young Irish winger who's been playing for Bohemians over in Ireland, and scored 7 goals in 18 games for them in 2020, because I think their season's sort of a calendar year season. 20 years old, so he sort of fits our mold of going for those young, exciting wingers. And it sounds as if, if the paper talk can be believed, it sounds as if we're looking to sign him up in January. And for all the talk we've just been saying about guys like Samuelson and Adelican, Adelican obviously here on loan, if we were to sign this guy and he's sort of half decent, it might sort of spell the end for at least Adelican and potentially Samuelson as well.
Yeah, look, I don't know much about him, but I think you're probably right. Like, with someone like Adelican on loan, he really has to be showing. He just needs to be more consistent and be performing closer to the top of what he's capable of than he's sort of middling a bit at the moment. So, if he can't pick it up, then, and we did pick another young winger up, he would certainly probably not get offered a permanent deal. And how long's left on Samuelson's contract? Is he this year?
I'm going to guess it must be the end of this season. It might be one of those ones where we have a year in our favour, but whether he's done enough to trigger that, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then I guess, but besides that, it's, probably, as we mentioned last week, maybe Device saying goodbye. Just the full lack of football, I think, is going to count against him in that regard. But
And then speaking of contracts, Fleming did sign a new contract this week for another 2 years with an option of a third year. So it's good to see. I think it was Chadwick who signed a 1 year with a 1 year potential for an extension last week as well. I think it was Chadwick. So it's good to see some of those younger guys starting to get signed up, and hopefully guys like Lewis Potter, even Batty, I guess. I don't know if he's sort of in the plans to get an extended contract, and then some of the more senior guys as well. It'd be great to see, whether it's Burke, whether it's Elder, whether it's I guess they've just joined us, but guys like Emmanuel, giving them longer deals would also be pretty good as well.
Yeah, look, I think it's really good to see us actually trusting in our academy players now, because there was a period where we still had quality coming in, but we were spending overs on bringing in players from elsewhere that didn't really perform. And you look, Bowen's gone from come through the academy, broken in the first team, gone on, and he's in with West Ham sitting 5th in the Premier League or something. He scored 4 goals or something like this season already. So he's doing really well. Ken Lewis Potter's made the jump quite easily, really, considering this is his first full season. And we've seen so many of those guys that have come through, which we haven't maybe retained, but have come in and done it and been capable enough to perform at that level. So I think part of that's forced by the financial motivations of the alums in regard to how they want to run the club, and it's obviously much cheaper to sign those academy guys on a cheap contract than it is to go out and find an established player. But I think it's working in our favor at the moment, and it's one of those things that I can't speak for anyone from Hull for this, but I know with my local, I'm a Central Coast Mariners fan, and I know whenever they sign, youth players into their senior squad, that makes me excited, and it makes me want to engage. I feel more connected to the club when it's it's Central Coast players that are playing for them, and I imagine it's the same for all those Hull-born fans, that when there's Hull players coming through the academy and breaking into the first team, that feels more like their team, even with all of the other off-field bullshit that goes on.
Yeah, well, speaking of, it's a good segue. Alex Bruce announced his retirement during the week as well, and gave an exclusive interview in the Hull Daily Mail. And I think most of the stuff that he said was already reasonably well known, but sort of hearing it straight from him, that essentially following the playoff final win, when I think he got a bone spur injury or something like that, which basically put him out for the whole Premier League season. When his father left the club, it was basically the end of his career at City, because he had basically told his agent that there was no future for Alex at the club, but then was only officially told that he was being released through the social media post from the club, which was pretty disappointing to see. And he sort of just conveyed, I guess, what we already knew, that, Steve had a good relationship with SM, and the club was sort of running pretty smoothly at that point. Then when Ehab took over, it all sort of went downhill. And he sort of bristled a little bit at the concept that Steve Bruce was an expensive manager, which I think was Ehab's sort of justification, and quite rightly pointed out that I'm pretty sure of all the players that Steve Bruce has signed, I think we're probably in a net profit position on them, when you consider that he's signed guys like Harry Maguire and Andy Robertson for a combined fee of £5 million or something like that. Bowen for essentially a free youth transfer. Sam Klukas went on for 12, 15 million pounds, guys like that. Hard to say that, yes, you're shelling out your £7 million for Jelavic or £9 million for Hernandez, who then go for free transfers. But most of the players turned out pretty profitable.
Yeah, not to mention Shane Long, who he bought and sold in the space of a season. And made a profit on. Not a huge one, but it was decent enough in such a short turnaround.
Yeah, I think he was basically. I think it was actually pretty decent. I think it was bought for 7 million, sold for 12.
Yeah,
in 6 months. So it's not bad.
But look, I don't know. It is disappointing when those things get when you hear it finally come out into the I guess, get aired out or whatever. But I don't know. It's a shame how it went down, I guess, for both Bruces, because they were both really good servants for the club. Both gave their all, and we enjoyed some really good times with both of them. So it's a bit of a shame all around, I think, that whole scenario.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Ben, speaking of good times, we do have the pleasure of announcing that on the 16th of December over in UK time, that Logan and myself will be appearing on the Wise Men Say podcast for a sort of Christmas special, which will be a bit exciting. So that'll be Thursday morning our time. I think it's going to be 8 p.m. in the UK. So we'll be doing a few different festive sort of themed ideas for that podcast, which will be pretty exciting. It's always nice to sort of collaborate with some of the other podcasts out there. And we do appreciate, I think it was over on the Saturday night just before the FA Cup game, the Tigers, blah, 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 tweeted out to sort of point out that, yes, there's, sort of 3 current sort of established podcasts for City. And I think there's a 4th that's looking like starting up in the next couple of weeks. So plenty of options for everyone to choose from, all released on different days of the week. So you can sort of stagger your City enjoyment of listening to the podcasts. Decent enough length that you can listen to it on the way to work or while you're having a coffee and checking your emails in the morning. So always good to sort of see the City community growing in terms of podcasts, and long may they all continue. But we'll look ahead now at our player review for this week, which is Sean McLoughlin. We're sort of fast running out of players, so I think we'll soon be doing reviews on players signed from this season, but he did sign for us back in 2019 from Cork, but then went on loan to St Mirren for the first half of last season. He did play a couple of times for us, 7 times in the league in the run in to the end of last season. It was pretty impressive on debut as well. But besides that, he's really just been limited to cup appearances at the moment. For me, probably his highlight was either his debut or I think it was a game in the EFL Trophy earlier this season where he was on fire and had a number of blocks and interceptions and looked really solid down back. So for me, look, he's one that's a really promising kid for the future, but I guess he's the sort of one that, he, especially with Greaves coming in now and Jones, sort of make that position a bit more difficult for him to latch onto. But if Burke was to move on or if there's sort of an injury or something like that, he's sort of the next cab off the rank, I guess, to fill in that spot.
Yeah, look, I think he's a good young player who, as you mentioned, has had some really bright moments for us. Unlucky, I guess, not to have had more opportunities so far, but I think he is sort of just on the periphery of breaking into the first team, I guess. But I guess what I'm concerned is that, well, not necessarily concerned because, Greaves has come on so strong, but concerned that that McLaughlin's going to be one that may sort of get away from us. He'll be one that will get towards the end of his contract and never have broken into the first team or whatever, or established himself as a first team regular and will get moved on. And we won't really ever get to see, the best of him or see him on a consistent basis, which, like many others have come in and been promising, but never really been given the opportunity or taken the opportunity. So I think that's my concern. But
I think the frustrating thing as well is he's the sort of player that we signed when we had a view to being a sort of mid-table championship club. And I guess the idea was probably to sign him, loan him out to St Mirren as we did, and then potentially loan him out to maybe a League One club this season, and get like a full season of games into him. But because circumstances have changed, and that's where we now find ourselves, it's harder to have made the decision to loan him out. And so he's sort of stuck in this no man's position of not getting game time with us, but being too good to loan out to another club in this division. So I think you're right that next season's probably the really interesting one for him. If we're to get promoted and he's not able to find a place in the side, I don't know if next season's sort of his last year on his contract, whether he goes out on loan and tries to prove himself for a new deal or tries to sort of put himself in the shop window maybe. But yeah, it's a funny one, I guess, because unlike with all of the wingers that we have, it's not as if we're regularly sort of rotating our centre backs during games. So he's not really getting much of a look in the league. And then, as we were sort of saying earlier, that FA Cup game, it was almost as if we almost sacrificed the game in essence to either play him or Device by putting them both on the pitch and not having a left back. So yeah, it's sort of a tricky one for him. It sort of reminds me of when we signed Maguire and we had him, McShane, Bruce, Davies, Dawson, and Chester all on the books. And that's a lot of centre backs to have. And even though we were playing three at the back, I think it was McShane who started to get kind of his nose out of joint because he just wasn't getting any game time. And I think Maguire got loaned out to Wigan. And, you know, Maguire was probably good enough to have been playing for us that season, or at least then the following season when we were getting promoted from the Championship, and just didn't get as much game time as he probably should have because we just had so many centre backs on the books. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with McLoughlin. Well, we'll look ahead now to the league game on the weekend against Oxford United, who are managed by Carl Robinson, not the Carl Robinson at Western Sydney or formerly of Newcastle Jets down here in Australia, but Carl with a K. I think he used to be manager of MK Dons, is probably where I know him best from. But he's been there since March 2018, which is a pretty decent spell in charge of a club. We actually haven't played Oxford since 2004, which was when we were back in League Two. I think it was Division 3 at the time, where we beat them 4-2 at home but lost 2-1 away. But we've only beaten them twice since the year 2000, which is sort of a reflection on the number of times we've played them, but is still quite a stat as well. And they've only got one win in 5, which came against Wigan, although they have been quite useful in taking points off Ipswich and Portsmouth as well. So how do you see this one against Oxford shaping up?
Look, I'm hopeful that we can just continue and we make it 5 from 5. That's the short answer. I think it'd be interesting to see how we rotate, or if we rotate, because it's a short turnaround again. Was admittedly quite a tough game this morning. So yeah, I guess
would you see Lewis Potter coming in?
I really could. Probably for a delicate, because he was underwhelming this morning. Yeah. I guess it just, and then you look at someone like Doherty and how he's pulled up, because he had a thigh complaint is why he's been out for a little while. So how he's pulled up from that, maybe he doesn't start, and then someone, Slater or Batty or Jones, any one of those could probably slot into that position and do the job. So I think barring anyone actually pulling up actually injured, I'd imagine that it's probably, I'd be thinking Keane Lewis Potter, Magennis, Wilkes, Honeyman, Smallwood. I don't know, maybe Slater, because he's been trusted. He played the Ipswich, then the FA Cup, 2 starts in a row. If Doherty's unavailable, if he's fine, then Doherty will obviously start. And yes, so probably only really the one change. Probably just Adelakun out, Keane Lewis Potter in is what I would expect, or would like to see anyway.
And do you see do you think you see the winning run continuing? I think it's interesting with Oxford having so many draws lately, and of course us not having drawn a game yet. It sort of worries me that maybe this is the time for our first draw of the season. But I'm hopeful that we can get the win against them.
Look, I don't know. I'm confident. The boys are playing well. We're in a strong position, in form. I'd see us getting the points. But if I had to settle for a point, I probably wouldn't really complain that much. Because we're still taking points. We're still at the top of the table. So a point, if we drop 2 points, it doesn't damage our position that much in the long run.
And being 4 points clear, it does give us that luxury of a loss, not even a loss or drop points, not even taking us off top.
And we still have a game in hand against over Peterborough. Lincoln, I think, still also has a game in hand. We're both 14 and others are 15 played. So, but yeah, look, I wouldn't be too concerned. A draw is a minimum. I would be very upset if we lost. I could tolerate a draw, but I expect a win.
Yeah. I think that's sort of the mentality we're slipping into this season, which is where it should be, which is, this is a division that we should be coming straight back out of. So need to be winning games like this against Oxford. We then have Crewe Alexandra in the next round of the EFL Trophy. Finally, a League One side that we've actually played in recent times. I guess we had the same with Fleetwood in the FA Cup, having already played them in the league. But we have already beaten Crewe Alexandra this season with that 1-0 win that we alluded to before. They're actually in reasonable form with 3 wins in their last 5. But again, should be a game that we should be winning, even with, as I anticipate, maybe 9 or 10 changes for this one.
Yeah, that one looks like another bloody midweeker. So yeah, probably will be a few changes for that. The sort of game where you'd expect Eaves to come in and start. Maybe someone like Scott gets a start.
Samuelson, maybe.
Yeah, some of those other guys. A few changes in the middle. Giving Honeyman and Smallwood and those guys that rest and let them be ready for who's after that, Shrewsbury. But yeah, I'd expect that we should be able to get a win, because I think we didn't. I'm trying to remember the game when we played them. I feel like we didn't play that well, but we.
It was the one, I think, where Wilkes got the goal in like the 83rd minute or something from Myers' cross into the box.
Yeah. So, look, I think, I reckon we can carry on our cup run. Take the.
And it softens the blow of losing that FA Cup game, knowing we've still got the EFL Trophy, because, like you were saying with the FA Cup, it's good to be able to have these games to rotate the squad, keep everyone fresh, and get minutes in the legs of the other players. So it's good to still be in this trophy. And look, if we can keep progressing, it'd be nice to have a trip to Wembley, and by then maybe some supporters will be able to attend, which would be a nice way to end it, kind of cap off the season after the season that we've had with COVID.
Yeah, well, if we get past Crewe, then what's there? Probably only 2 or 3 games or something, and then
must be sometimes. I've tried to do some research on this, because being very unfamiliar with the EFL Trophy, I don't know if this is a quarterfinal or something like that. I think this might be the round of 16, so I think it might be 3 more games after this. But your guess is as good as mine. I tried to do some research, but Wikipedia wasn't very clear on how the competition's structured.
Well, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's round of 32 at the moment.
Round of 32. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what's that? 4 more games after this. 16, 8, 4, 2. Yep.
So okay. So not too far away. And there's quite a few under 21s teams still in the competition. So luck of the draw. We get past Crewe. Never know what you'll get. Maybe a team we've already beaten. Maybe an under 21s. Who knows? But
it'll be interesting. It'll be good. But no, look, I do find myself sort of looking forward more to the league game. So it'll be good to play Oxford on the weekend and try and keep that gap growing at the top of the table, and see where we can be by Christmas time.
Yeah, well, I think if we keep going the way we're going, we'll have a nice. We'll give ourselves a 12-point gap for Christmas or something.
Yeah, it'd be nice straight at Christmas. But we'll see. We'll see how we're going next week. But thank you for joining me tonight, Dan.
Not a problem.
No worries, and thank you everyone for listening in. Until this time next week, come on, City.